There's a Friday the 13th in October. It's just perfect.
I know, I was just gonna mention that. One of my friends is flying today. I was like, good luck. Gosh. What a great day to fly.
Yeah. Send me a really nice picture of you just in case you don't make it. Just want to remember you.
I know.
Alrighty. If everybody's ready, I think we'll get started here. We've got the recording going, and I have turned off everyone's mics, but if you have any questions, just go ahead and leave them in the chat, and we can pick those up at the end. Without further ado, we've got Christopher Thompson here to talk about the state of the tech industry here, and I'm going to let him take it away.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming on a Friday afternoon. So I wanted to do this talk specifically because we're kind of in this, well, not kind of, we're in this really weird space, right? We've come out of COVID for the most part. And so things have changed dramatically yet again, right? When COVID happened, things switched and everything was kind of upside down. Things are getting back to some kind of normal, although it doesn't necessarily mean that they're back to where they were before COVID, right? And I'm talking about the tech industry in general. Some of this stuff will apply to, overall the job or the labor market, but I wanted to just touch on some things and give you some insights into what companies are looking for, what skills are in demand, and also like how you can position yourself in this market and like where we're at right now. So start with some current trends. I scoured the internet looking for all the latest data that I could find. I'm going to try not to kill you with numbers because you probably won't remember them anyway, but I'm definitely going to highlight some like general things that you should understand about the market. And a lot of what I found came from this report. It's the World Economic Forum. They released the Future of Jobs report for 2023. And this has been a yearly thing since, I think they said 2015 or 2016. I can't remember, but it covers, right, expectations. So they take a cross section of the largest companies, right, specifically 803 companies, which represents 11 million, roughly 11.3 million. So they have the number, I'll just say 11.3 million employees across 45 regions. And what they wanted to figure out was like how, and what they're always trying to figure out with this report is how jobs and skills are going to evolve, right, over the next 5 years. So every time they do it, right, they're getting that data point 5 years from now, 5 years from now. And so there's a lot of great insights in this and really interesting changes that you can see. Now, I grabbed the graphs that I thought were interesting. I really think everyone should like dig in. It is a long report. I'm not saying everybody should read the whole thing. It's like 250 pages, right? But like, at least take a look at some of these sections, and there's more insights than I'm going to represent here because we just don't have time, but I'm going to try and grab some that I thought were interesting. But reading this kind of literature and finding these kinds of reports, there's tons. There's stuff from McKinsey, there's stuff from other organizations that are surveying companies. Like, keep your finger on the pulse, right? Like, you need to understand this stuff so that you can position yourself well when you're doing your job hunt. And so we'll start with kind of these three overarching like themes that I found from the report, and some supplemental reading I did outside the report. This is the first graph I'm going to share. So the thing we want to understand, and I didn't read that, but soft skills are in high demand, right? And so when we're taking all these technical courses as, software engineers, cybersecurity professionals, whatever, right? When we're getting into tech, we're always concentrating on like, I need to learn algorithms and data structures. I need to learn Python. I need to learn, there's all these things you want to learn technically, which is very important. Obviously you need that stuff, right? But one thing that's neglected that I don't think is like touched upon as much are like these soft skills, the communication skills, the writing skills, critical thinking skills. And critical thinking, you could argue, comes with like, say a data structures and algorithms course. You got to think pretty critically when you're doing that stuff. But if we look at this, I thought this graph was so interesting. They took the share of learning hours on the y-axis in a percentage, and they took the reskilling focus. So, you know, when we look at this, we see that companies basically are looking for, you know, all of these skills, right? But we notice that like the things they want the most, which is on this side, the focus of companies, AI and big data, analytical thinking, creative thinking, leadership, and social influence, are actually like really sought after. But you notice the amount of hours that are being put in on something, and you could argue too, maybe there's not enough courses on Coursera. There are some, right? But nevertheless, the focus is on mostly technical skills, right? Take it with a grain of salt, but I just thought it was really interesting that they plotted these two things against each other. And so it kind of goes to show that even though there are these classes on Coursera, the main focus tends to be the technical ones, the programming, networks and cybersecurity, user experience, like that kind of stuff, right? And so what I really want to push is like, don't neglect the soft skills. Seek out those things because companies want them. And like, they're just as important as the technical aspects. So try not to neglect that stuff. And I've done things in the past with people, you know, I try to advise people on their job hunts and different things like that. And one thing I push is like, while it's important to learn like, say, programming, there's a whole other aspect to building software, which is the software development life cycle, right? Where there's all these other kind of skills, like understanding source control, understanding agile, understand like all these other things that go into building software that are not programming focused and sometimes not even technical. It's more so like philosophies. And so definitely there's classes on those, and I encourage you to also seek those out because they're really important and could potentially mean the difference between you getting a job over somebody else who has not looked into that or does not know that stuff. And just so you know, later on, I'll be providing like a bunch of resources. So I'm not just going to say like, go do this, and then you have to find it on your own. I have so many resources. I'll share this presentation so you have those links, both to the reports that I'm showing and then, you know, the resources that I'll recommend later. And we're going to try and zoom because I think I totally overdid it on how much information I think I can cover in an hour, but let's get going. So like I said, companies want soft skills, and soft skills are often neglected. But another thing that's going to be critical that we're going to see, and this is a trend, is this idea of upskilling. So like, even if you do know, like for instance, myself, right? Just anecdotally, I have, or recently, right, within the past year, generative AI just exploded, right? And it's because of ChatGPT. Like that was the driver, right? That the fuel that just like blew this fire through the roof. And so now I've had to, and I've been working in NLP for like 5 years, 6 years or something like that, right? Specifically. But it really forced me to like really dive even deeper than I had already been going because now this was in high demand, right? So you always want to be finding things that are in high demand and you always want to be looking towards the future. So I knew, for instance, I knew that I could see, I was sharing ChatGPT at like the New Year's party last year. And I was like, this is going to be huge. And people are like, what's a chatbot? And I was like, okay, whatever. So like, I went out and I was seeking out like, where is this stuff going? You always want to be looking for these next things so that you can ride the wave. You don't want to be behind the wave because there's no momentum there. You'll always find yourself trying to catch up, right? So as soon as something drops and it's crazy, like devote your life to it, right? And that sounds crazy, but like I've kind of been playing this game first with data science back in like 2016, like deep learning, then with ML ops, before ML ops was even called ML ops, right? Rode that wave. And now I'm riding this generative AI wave where somehow I've, you know, and I've been very lucky, but it's in looking at these types of trends that I feel like I've been able to position myself to be lucky, right? So you want to increase the probability that you're going to be lucky. So definitely, you know, look at this stuff. And so look, if you see this trend here, right, this isn't specifying any exact skills, but we're going to get to that in 2 seconds. I just wanted to show this. And so this jobs report, it was first published in 2016. And back in 2016, right, we could see that they said 35% of workers' skills would be disrupted in the following 5 years. So by 2021, that number had increased to 42% by 2018 and 57% by 2020. Now we're back up to 44%, which is kind of interesting. Doesn't mean a trend or anything, right? But it is interesting that it's dropped a little bit, especially with generative AI and like all this stuff that's come out. But it's still fairly high, right? They're predicting in 40, right, that worker skills will be disrupted overall. 44% of worker skills will be disrupted. That is a massive amount, right? We're creeping up on like half of workers are going to need to upskill in the next 5 years. And so if we look at these core skills, so this is the core skills for workers that companies, right, that have basically cited as core skills within their company, right? And these are the share of those actual skill sets that people possess. They tend to match pretty well, right? If this is kind of like, and this is a little convoluted, right? The overall idea is just that they've ranked these things in importance. They surveyed companies and said, what's important core skills for 2023? And this is what they said. Notice the top: analytical thinking, creative thinking, resilience, motivation, curiosity, right? Like those aren't technical skills, right? But they say they see those as core skills, right? And they also see them as lacking, right? Because when we look at the reskilling focus of these companies, now one huge jump you see here, right? They say in the next 5 years, the reskilling focus is going to be analytical thinking, creative thinking. You see AI made a huge jump. If we go back, you can see it. It was down at around, where is it at? 15. Now we're up at 3. That tells you something, right? AI and data is going to be huge in the next 5 years, right? So that is a hint that maybe you should be looking into that stuff, right? And so we also see other things though, right? Design and user experience, motivation and self-awareness, like these things that are not necessarily taught in a classroom, but like reading books and watching online courses and things can kind of get you there. So definitely keep in mind that while data and big data and AI is huge, look what's above it: creative thinking, right? And so it hasn't displaced that yet. Okay, so reskilling, right? Soft skills, like major concentration. And this was the reason I put this here. Now there's others, obviously technical stuff, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was super fascinating that companies were like focusing on those things as opposed to like, we have a serious lack of Java programmers or something, right? Like it wasn't that. And so, but why isn't my GIF playing? I hate it when my GIF doesn't play. Well, it's supposed to be Will Smith getting groovy, but so just use your imagination. But the third thing I wanted to focus on is remote work. Big topic, right? And over COVID, everybody was like, we're going remote. We're never going back to the office, right? We thought that work had changed forever and everyone wants a remote job. And it was fairly easy, right? We were getting something like, 25% of jobs or more. I saw some statistic, and take that with a grain of salt. It's somewhere around 25%, right? Of all jobs posted were remote positions. And everybody's like, great, this is amazing. So now everybody started to get used to that idea that remote was here to stay, right? But remote work demand is up, and it turns out supply is down. Okay, so let me give you an anecdote. So there's this startup, and this was an article I read, and this kind of sums it up, right? So this startup called Cribble posted a job opening on LinkedIn for a people operations analyst, whatever that is, right? But there was nothing crazy about the role. It was $55,000 to $70,000. It required 2 to 4 years of relevant experience, right? Standard benefits, 401k, so on and so forth. Within the first week, 573 people applied, right? A week later, another 634 candidates applied. So by the end of the process, more than 1,700 candidates had applied for this job. And then the hiring manager at Cribble eventually interviewed 3 applicants out of 1,700 applicants. And then they only gave an offer to someone in Ohio, right? 1 person out of 1,700. So the chance of getting picked for that job was 0.06%. All right. That is crazy. And that's 60 times worse than the odds of getting into Harvard. Right? Like, it's about twice as unlikely as catching a foul ball at a baseball game. Okay. It's on par with having a birthday on February 29th. I just want to get this across to you that, like, I work remote right now. Okay. And I absolutely love it. But like, it's not the norm anymore, or it's becoming like not so much the norm, right? So in August, 9% of LinkedIn job postings were fully remote. Oh, here we go, down from 21% in March of 2022. So that goes to show you, a little less than 10% of jobs are remote, right? And just a handful of remote listings attract close to half of all the applicants. So you can imagine how many people are applying to fighting for this 9%. And ZipRecruiter, remote openings get 3x as many candidate applications as in-office roles. So why am I telling you this? There's like a point you have to come to, right? That you have to ask yourself, like, how important is it for me to get a job? Do I care more about remote work, or do I care about getting my foot in the door at a company and getting my career started and, like, moving forward, right? I've seen people fighting for remote position, and not to say that you shouldn't apply to remote position. You absolutely should, right? If that's something that you want. I've seen people get them. It's not, I don't want to say it's not impossible, because that's a pretty low probability, but it is possible. But I wouldn't make that the focus necessarily, because I feel like it can lead to burnout and frustration. I'll say more on that in a second. But let's look at the 3 factors driving low supply. So the first one is that large companies are ordering employees back to the office. We've all seen these stories, right? Large companies, Google and whoever, Netflix, Facebook, they're all like, nah, we need people to come back, right? And that's actually driving remote workers who were remote and now being called back to the office to look for work, which means that if you are looking for a remote position and you are not employed, you're fighting the people that are employed, have experience, and have already, are looking for remote jobs, right? And so they're kind of like muddying the waters and potentially pushing you down the list of, like, good candidates. And so I experienced this. I got hired at a company and they were like, you're remote. And then they were like, we're going to need you to come in 3 days a week. And I was like, sorry. And, like, I went and looked for another job. Now, I was lucky because I had a job, plus I had experience. So I was able to land another position fairly quickly, right? But I probably pushed out several other people that were, like, looking for jobs that maybe didn't have as much experience or something like that were looking for that remote job, right? And I have some tips on how to get around this a little bit. Share that later. So companies are listing almost all new jobs as in-person or hybrid, right? Which has led to that drop. So even if they're hybrid, they're not considered remote roles fully, right? And so they're not going to get counted in that number. So that accounts for part of that drop. And then there's been a dramatic slowdown in tech. Now, I was just saying, like, I work in consulting, and we're starting to see a lot of clients thinking about spending lots and lots of money. Mostly I work in data and AI, so it's kind of a biased viewpoint, right? But I am seeing that. And there's a potential, right? Interest rates and so forth are kind of slowing down. Inflation's come down. So there's a potential the economy is going to get better. But as of right now, right, like up until this point, we've seen a dramatic slowdown in tech, which means there's less jobs, which means, and unemployment is at record lows, which means there's, a lot of people in jobs. So companies are hard up to get employees, but it also means that there's, like, a lot of candidates fighting for, like, single positions because there's not as many positions, right? Companies aren't hiring because it's slow, unemployment's low, right? They're desperate, but they're also not seeing, as you saw earlier, the skills that they want to see necessarily. They think people need to upskill, so on and so forth. So it's kind of like this weird market right now where there's uncertainty. Companies are kind of holding their breath and waiting, and also like trying to find good candidates that are qualified for these things. But it's hard. It's hard for them, right? You've probably been out job hunting and you've seen like software engineer, senior software engineer, principal software engineer, but you don't see many like, hey, we need a newbie, right? Entry level, like 0 years of experience. Like you don't see that a lot. And so when you do, there's a lot of entry level people probably fighting for that exact position. So that's a lot. I have a lot to say about that, but I'm an economics nerd / graduate. So that's something I'm really into. But anyway, we'll not dwell on that. We'll go with this quote, right? With unemployment near, my whole point of this remote talk is, or remote work talk is, with unemployment near a 5-decade low, 3.8% last I checked, there are plenty of available positions for those who are willing to brave the morning commute. I want you to remember that when you're looking for a job, that like a lot of people try to get into tech because they think I'm going to work from home, right? But like try to like move past that a little bit and remember that it's not just for the remote work. It's not just so you can, you know, code in your boxers, right? It's like so you can like get a career, have a better life, provide a better life for you, your family, whatever the case may be. There's another why, and it's not just remote work. While that's nice, it shouldn't be a deal breaker necessarily, because if you're willing to commute, there's a potential that that'll make you a really like good candidate, and there'll be less people that you're pushing past, right? And money, right? Yes, I saw money is obviously important. Okay, so here's the skills gaps, right? And this is going to lead us into kind of positions, right? So we've got some skills gaps. This was one done by McKinsey, and there's some caveats at the bottom. We don't need to go into them. It's basically they left out people who responded, I don't know, and that kind of thing. But data analytics is huge. Okay, so data analytics, IT, mobile, web design, and management. That was really surprising for me because I thought like that was the highest, like the thing people learned the most was like web development and like mobile development. Apparently there's a gap there, that's great, right? Like more opportunity. And then some of these like other ones, HR talent and talent management, executive management, sales and marketing operations. Remember that tech, and I will foreshadow for what I heard this talk next week is going to be about. Tech is not just technical jobs. Like you don't have to be a programmer to be in tech. There's so many other people that make this machine run, right? And it's not just coders. So if you have other skills, especially these soft skills or any of these like extroverted type skills, even if you're not an extrovert, extroverted introverts also apply here, right? Or even introverts, but like just saying like, look at these other things that are in demand and notice that they're not necessarily technical, that those soft skills that we were looking at earlier also apply to these skills gaps, okay? So don't force yourself into something that is not a good fit for your skill set. You need to recognize what your skill set is and play to that strength, because it's likely that you're better at that than most other people if you can find that thing, right? Like dwell on that, like enrich that, and maybe you're not the programmer, right? But maybe you're the manager of programmers, which is also a very, very good position. Okay, and so this was my last like crazy graphic. I don't even know if you can see this. I'm gonna try and talk through it. And I saw there was a question. I'll get to that in 2 seconds. So what this is the churn. Okay, so what we're looking at is the purple is the jobs displaced in the next 5 years. The blue is the jobs created in the next 5 years. And the diamond will be that net growth of those jobs, right? So you see up here, we're going to just go to the top, let's say 10 here, right? We'll see AI and machine learning specialists. Look, I mean, it's all blue. It's big, right? And we keep going down the list. Sustainability specialists, sustainability and environmentally conscious folks are going to be in a really high demand as this green economy kicks off and companies start moving towards that. So keeping that in mind is going to be really important. Data analysts and data scientists, information security analysts. That's another one. Cybersecurity will continue to be huge, especially as we get more IoT devices, more hardware out into the world that are doing these automated tasks. You're going to have more vulnerabilities, and therefore we're going to need more cybersecurity folks. And so that's an area that you may find yourself heading towards. Again, big data, robotics. One I thought was interesting is blockchain developers. I mean, look at blockchain developers is like top 10. I didn't count something like that, but definitely top 20, which is fascinating to me. It's way above like chemical engineers, electrotechnology, and like blockchain developers, even data engineers is below that. Like I found that to be, I didn't look into it, but I thought that was super interesting. So apparently blockchain is still a thing. That's awesome. So another niche that you could find yourself in. They do pay well, you know, those blockchain developers. I don't know. I didn't look into how many jobs are out there, but on the other side of things, we see that some of these, some of these things that could be automated away, you could imagine could be automated away in some way or done away with some of this automation work that will be done in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Postal service clerks, bank tellers, software testers, like all of this kind of stuff may be able to be done by robotics, AI, whatever the case may be. So if you find yourself on this side, just keep this in mind. It's not like a death sentence, right? But it is something, this is the outlook of companies surveyed. And you may want to pay attention to some of these things. Okay, let me address. I know there was like a question. Okay, let me come down. Blah 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 blah. Question: do you have info or stats for number of in-person positions versus hybrid positions, and number of applicants for in-person versus applicants for hybrid? No, I just had that anecdote, and I did read like there's a ton of articles that I read through out there, and I really didn't want to kill you with statistics. So I don't personally have it on hand, but like if you go Google it, you're going to find a bunch from monster.com, indeed.com, LinkedIn. They have all of those numbers that you can read through and kind of get more details on that. Normal people are extroverted introverts or introverted extroverts. I know it's a whole spectrum, right? Okay. All I see, new just information technology. You have to establish oneself. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, and Sherry, yeah, so we talked about cybersecurity folks. Look, like artists are important, but in a different way, right? They're not that important to and designers and musicians and like all of these things, right? Like, of course, they're important to society, but like what businesses deem important is exactly what businesses are meant to do, which is make money. And if it doesn't and I don't want to get into this philosophical conversation. Like I'm a musician, so I empathize, right? But at the same time, like companies are out there to make money, and whatever's going to get them there, that's what they're going to probably go for, right? And unfortunately, these days, it's not so much artists, designers, musicians as it is data people and, IT folks and that kind of stuff. So that's all I'll say about it. I don't want to have a huge conversation, but I'm with you. I get it. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Like I said, I totally overloaded this presentation. We're already halfway through. Okay. So let's talk about in-demand fields. Okay, so I tried to shortlist this. There's more, there's something I'm gonna miss, like blockchain developers. But I tried to put top 4 that I've seen or I've been seeing. I get hit up all the time for like positions from recruiters and stuff, not bragging, just saying like, I see what's out there. They send me job postings. I talk to candidates too. Like people come to me and they want to have informational interviews or like go out to coffee, just talk about stuff. Right. And so these are like the 4 places. If it was me and I was trying to find something to concentrate on, these are the 4 that I would pick from. And that's just me. Anyone could argue something different, but let's take a peek. So the first one, data scientist. Now I'm going to put that I say data scientist, but that encompasses machine learning engineers, AI engineers. I should have said AI, but I needed a specific title so I could give you pretty pictures about salaries and stuff. So we'll go with data scientists. Machine learning engineers, AI engineers are roughly the same. more or less, as you're going to see here. And these vary. I got these from PayScale. Okay, but you can go to Glassdoor and they may have a slightly different range. It just depends on their survey data, right? Data sets they're working with. So we'll see the data scientists, right? We've got, this is the first one I would concentrate. Anything AI, right? Machine learning, whatever. But we'll say data scientists. We get about $99,000, so roughly $100,000 a year average salary. It's good. It's really good, right? The medium is 100K. And you can see the breakdown here of base salary, bonus, profit sharing, etc. And it can range pretty substantially. And that really is going to depend on the company, your responsibilities. Like sometimes they call a data scientist or a data analyst a data scientist, but they pay them as a data analyst, right? Like, and they're not doing any machine learning. It just depends on like the nature of the job. But I wanted to throw numbers out there and then give you the top skills, right? So we need Python, we need data analysis, we need machine learning, we need statistical analysis. How deep you have to go into those things really depends on the job. There may be a huge focus on software engineering as a data scientist, and you need a lot of Python and need to understand how to build APIs and stuff. But there also, it may just be data analysis and statistical analysis, and you may do no machine learning. You may only do machine learning. Like it depends, again, on the role of the company. But overall, these are like the top skills I would say like you should probably focus on if you're going into data science. Like gather these up and you should be in pretty good shape. And I love this range, right? Like what I'm always doing like in my head for my career, and I recommend everybody do this. I started doing it. I started setting just tangible goals, right? I'm going to be here in 5 years. That's my goal. I have one right now. And usually it's salary related. Usually I'm just like, I'm going to make X amount in 5 years. That's my goal, right? And I've hit those goals, which has been very nice, but it kept me motivated. Like on those days when I was just like, I hate everything. I don't want to work. I don't want to do this. Like, because you don't love your work all the time, right? But having something that you're focused on, an overarching goal will keep pulling you that direction, even when you don't want to. Okay. And so like, you got to be really hardcore about this stuff and realize that this is a process. Don't expect to come out swinging at $140,000 a year, right? Taper your expectations, but set goals and be aggressive. Be as aggressive as you want, because like a lot of times that will help with motivation. Okay, enough of that. Let's keep going. So we got data scientist, machine learning, you know, all that kind of stuff, AI engineer, whatever. And I'd say the skills are roughly the same for all of those. There's maybe some slight variations, like some DevOps and stuff that I'd add in for machine learning engineers. But overall, I'd say this should get you where you're going. Okay. Now, where does that leave us? Now, I'm not going to drop all these links. I'm going to drop the presentation at the end. I'll share the link for that. But these are all links to all the things I'm going to share with you. So my philosophy on learning stuff, I have a philosophy, and this is it temper? Okay, I said taper your expectations. Thank you. So I say a book, a course, a podcast, a blog. And maybe that varies, and you'll see that in these resources. But I always say grab 4 things, right? You want information hitting you in different ways from all different directions. You want your eyes, your ears. You want to engage all your senses, right? And one thing I didn't put on here is presenting as a big one, right? Like being able to present, not only does it give you visibility, but also forces you to learn the thing for real, because you got to answer questions. You got to teach people about it, right? If you're going to present on it, you got to know it. It really forces you to learn. So I highly recommend presenting. That's helped me a lot throughout my career thus far. But nevertheless, a book, a course, a podcast, a blog. So here for machine learning, this is my Bible. Hands-on machine learning. It's now in its 3rd edition. I use this to get my first job in machine learning. Read it cover to cover, did every exercise in the book. If you do this book, you will be in really, really good shape. And keep it on your shelf. Reference it often. It's awesome. MicroMasters Program in Statistics and Data Science from MITx. I did one of these through edX from UCSD. I did a MicroMasters, which is like a shortened master's degree. It's like, I think everybody has one now. Coursera has them, and Udacity have them. But definitely pick like I would pick this one. And the only reason I say that, I haven't taken it. Actually, I've taken a couple of courses in it. I shouldn't say that. But the reason I say this is because part of what got me my first job was just purely the fact that I had taken a course, or I'd taken my certificate from UCSD, great computer science school. Like that played. Like, and unfortunately it does, right? So someone who did a Udemy course versus someone who did this MIT course, like, well, who would you choose, right? Or who would you see in like a better, like, and it shouldn't be that way. I agree. I get it. But like sometimes it is. So put yourself in a good position. Does this involve investing a little bit of money? It always does. But think of it as that, an investment, right? So this does cost upwards of, I forget, $1,700. But $1,700 to be making $100K a year, I'd say that's a pretty good return on investment, right? So yeah, it might be worth it. And they also have scholarships too and stuff if you're not working and things like that. I did, my program was like something like that, $1,700 I ended up getting away with it for $600. So for $600 I got a career in data science. It was nuts. So like, invest in yourself, buy a book, buy a course, and this is actually a program, not just a course. But Data Skeptic, great data science podcast. Okay, let's keep going. So those will be available when I share this link for the presentation. Next one, data engineering, blowing up, absolutely exploding right now. All right, and like salary is comparable to something you'd see in something like data science. Different skill set, and data engineers are often supporting like folks like data scientists and so forth. And so top skills here: Python, SQL, extract, transform, load. There's other ones, ELT and like so forth. But overall, like moving data, transforming data, data pipelines is essentially what that covers, right? I should have just said data pipelines, but data analysis. And one that like I didn't really mention like on every single one of these, and I just want to say for all of these it applies: cloud. Learn the cloud, get certified in any cloud platform, and you'll be so far above everyone else. Like I can't tell you how many times I've come to a job and people are like, I've touched the cloud. Like I kind of know no, go learn the cloud. All the company, like most companies are doing something in the cloud, but many of them are completely moving to the cloud. We do so much business at the company I work at, Insight, of just cloud migrations, like getting people into the cloud because they recognize the business value in that. So if I can give you one piece of advice, if you don't do anything else that I say today, go get certified in Azure, GCP, or AWS and continue to work your way up those certifications. They play so much. It is crazy how much like clout that gives you, right? So do it. And then the statistics you can see here, I'll let you dig through those when I show this presentation. The resources here, again, fundamentals of data engineering, get that under your belt, right? There's a podcast, the Data Engineering Podcast. Listen to it. I listen to tech podcasts every week. I have ones that I like to listen to for my specific work, what I do, right, for my job. I love the Airbnb data science and data platform engineering blog, great blog. And honestly, if you go to like Uber or Netflix, they all have great engineering blogs where they write these really detailed posts about whatever topics. If you're in any tech field, follow those and read them. They'll give you a lot of insight into what it's like to actually do stuff at a massive scale, right? Which can be super helpful when you're being interviewed and they start asking you questions. And then the course, I haven't done it. I just was looking around and trying to find one that's highly rated. Udacity Data Engineering Nano Degree, get it, right? One thing I'd say and be careful of is like there's these really entry-level courses, and I would say you should take them to get your feet wet, but get something that's hard. You don't want to get something that everyone else has passed because no one's gonna care. Sorry to tell you, like that's the reason people are at like the Tech Academy, doing these like 10-month or whatever it is, right? These long haul like programs. That's gonna play. That matters, right? Like that's hard because not everybody does it or succeeds, even if they start. right? But if you do like entry level, like going and getting a Udemy certificate, anybody can just turn on videos and hit autoplay and just let those play all the way through and make it look like you did something. That doesn't say anything to me. That just means you watched videos, and you can't learn this stuff just from watching videos. So like go out and do something hard. Go to MIT. Okay, go get these nano degrees. Like do something that is really difficult that not a lot of people do. Okay, moving on. Okay, I keep getting on tangents. Okay. I'm not a cybersecurity person, so I just like did my best to like figure out, oh, I forgot to change top skills. This is dumb. This is me being lazy and copying and pasting. Yeah, sorry. Cybersecurity analyst, right? I can tell you what you do need because on the side, I really like cybersecurity. So notice salaries are a little less, okay? Don't let that deter you, right? We're playing the long game. Entry level may not be as high, but long-term prospects for your job or job security are real good at this point, right? I will change it before I share. Where should I share this? I'll try. I'm gonna change it on the slide later, and then I'll share the link now, but I'll also share the change the skill sets so that that's available to you after the presentation. Okay, so you see like long term right now, 112, that kind of stuff. Now take this with a grain of salt because this is specifically for a cybersecurity analyst, but in the future you might become a senior cybersecurity analyst, or you might become a whatever, right? Like something, a manager or something like that, right? So this is specifically, all of these things are specifically for these positions that we're talking about, but the long term, don't visit the dark web. I don't know, I have mixed emotions. You know, this is going to be high demand. You're going to have a job. That's like the main point of this whole thing, right? And so taking like a $10,000 cut for long-term job security, where like in data science and machine learning, it could get dicey as we automate more things. Just keep that in mind. Cybersecurity analyst resources. So one I read and a book I loved was The Art of Invisibility. It's kind of a classic at this point, talking about how to be safe, right? How to keep yourself hidden, all of these kinds of things. Really cool book. I recommend everybody here read it, even if you're not a cybersecurity analyst. Like it's pretty insightful. The course, Google did this really interesting thing with Coursera, which they're huge investors in Coursera. But one big thing they did was they brought out these professional certificates. Google recognized that there's a shortage of people with computer science degrees. 2, there's a shortage of people with skills in general that are needed for specific positions they're looking for. And 3, there's not a lot of resources available for some of these positions that they want, or at least they're not teaching the right things. So Google came out with their own courses, their own professional certificates. They have one for data analysts. They have one for IT specialists. They have one for cybersecurity professional. It's on Coursera. And so one thing about these is they get you job ready, which is cool, right? But one other thing they do is you can go apply at Google. That's why Google brought these out, because they're like, we need bodies and we need people with the right skills. So if you do well on this, there's a potential that you could go apply at Google and get a job. I'm not saying they'll definitely hire you just because you took this course, because remember, just taking a course doesn't make you a professional, right? There's a whole other list of skills that you're going to need, but it can get you going in the right direction, right? And so, okay. Security Now podcast, great podcast. The blog, haven't read it, but seen a lot of people say it's a really awesome blog. I'm going to start reading it. Is Heimdall Security, which is a security firm, but they also have a blog. Seem to be doing some cool stuff. So go ahead and check that out, and drop your favorite blog. If you, by the way, these resources are not exhausted by any means. So if you have a favorite resource, or if you think there's a skill missing or whatever, like, please share. Okay, software engineer, obviously, right? But like this is something that really, like pay attention to this. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'd rather learn Python than Java. Java sucks, or like whatever. There's too many web developers, or I hate C#. Whatever your opinion is, like these are the skills out there. And I think GitHub just released, and obviously take that with a grain of salt too, but just released their like top programming languages, right? Like that like the most popular in-demand programming languages based on their surveys. And, JavaScript was up there, Java was up there, Python's up there, C#'s up, all of these, right? My feeling and opinion about programming languages, learn one. Don't learn four. Learn one and learn the hell out of it, right? Learn every single tiny detail you can about it, right? Because once you do that, you'll realize when you go and learn, and I know this is cliche, but it's totally true. Then when you need to learn another language, you can go learn another language and you pick it up very, very fast because the fundamentals are essentially the same. You just have to learn syntax, right? And that becomes easier and easier as you pick up more and more languages and that kind of thing. So get interested in language and why languages are made the way they are, because that'll kind of determine why you like this language over that language, or why you might use this language to build this thing over that one, like really keep that in mind. I'm seeing a lot of good stuff in the chat and I just wanted to address it really quick. I know it's fun to say. It's extremely fun to say. Okay, did you learn? Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna answer some of these questions at the end, but I really like the project. I saw projects mentioned, and I think that that's super, super important. I often find that it's hard for people to find projects. Like everybody's like, I guess I'll make a to-do list, right? Like in JavaScript, and hopefully that gets me a job. No, find a thing that is real in your life, right? And then start figuring out how to build a thing for that, right? Not just a to-do list, because the problem is if you take a project, and not to say you shouldn't do that to practice, but when you take a project that is already out there, that already has base code and everything, it's so easy for you to just take code and put it in your portfolio and change maybe the colors in the background, and all of a sudden you've done a project. Pick something really random. Or my other suggestion is to go find open source projects and contribute. Learn to contribute. And the reason I say that is because then you're not just working on your own project in your own little cave. You're actually able to collaborate with other people and learn kind of the software development life cycle. Why do I commit here? And why are we doing pull requests? And why do we do these reviews? How do we do reviews? How do I open an issue? All of these things that are involved with building software outside of just the coding aspect comes along with that. It's super, super great to go and also just contribute to open source, because open source is awesome. But keep that in mind when you're looking for a project. Think about contributing to an open source project. There's all kinds of things. They need help with documentation, all kinds of, so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be coding for it, but try, right? If you want a portfolio, it might be, because then they'll put you, if you contribute enough, they'll put you as a contributor, and then you put down your resume. I contributed to Kubernetes. And they're like, whoa, we love this guy. He's a go-getter. He obviously has all the soft skills. He's motivated, and the technical stuff, right? So it's kind of a good way to prove yourself. Okay. Software engineering resources. Free Code Camp, Free Code Camp, Free Code Camp. Go to Free Code Camp. Use everything. Their YouTube channel, their blog. Free Code Camp has been around for years, and I'm a huge advocate of it. They have all kinds of stuff, and it's all free. Okay, you could learn. They release a video every 4 days on now we're gonna build a chatbot with OpenAI. Now we're gonna learn Go, and it's a full course. It's 10 hours, whatever. It's every 4 days. I feel software architecture, coding interviews, everything. They cover every language, all kinds of stuff. Really cool way to keep up with the latest and greatest. If you're bored, just to watch a video, do a cool little thing. Really great, love it. And then a classic book that I think everybody should read. Yeah, Uncle Bob, thank you. Clean Code by Robert C. Martin. This guy, and he's written a whole series of stuff. He's done some courses and things that you can check out. But this book is the original, and it's the Bible for software engineers and coding, okay? And it's not so much classes and data structures and that stuff. It's how to structure code in a way that makes sense, that's readable by you now, readable by you in the future, and readable by other people now and into the future. It's a philosophy, okay? Yes, how about that? I love that people have read that. Okay, cool. Okay, my God, we have 8 minutes. I'm gonna cruise, and I'm not gonna do everything that I was planning to do, but how do we attack this? This all feels very overwhelming, Chris. Where do I start? first of all, work every day on this stuff as much as your brain will allow you to. One thing that I did when I was looking for my first job, I was a stay-at-home dad. And I've given presentation. You can go find the presentation on the full story for that on Tech Academy's YouTube page. But like, I literally, I canceled like, I know this is like, you know, go getter, but like, I literally canceled Netflix. I didn't watch Netflix for like 2 years or a year and a half. What was it like? Yeah, like a year and a half, right? Like, I devoted everything I had to this, right? Because I was just like, I need to get a job. So like, keep that in mind. I'm not saying cancel Netflix. I'm just saying like, be hardcore. And so what do you need to focus on? Obviously your resume, right? Because you got to submit a resume. But the reason I pull it up, and I'm going to make myself super vulnerable here. We're just going to take quick peeks at all my stuff. Make it clean. Make it very specific. And I know if you don't have work experience, it can be really difficult to like, right, have all it, because now I've had experience and now I have all this, you know, stuff to say about all the things I did. But like projects and things like, say, your open source contributions, right? That's another thing that you could put on your resume here that would supplement any experience that maybe you don't have, right? Education. So you'll see here, data science micromasters, University of Southern California, San Diego, right? I wasn't on campus. I didn't like, it was master's level courses. It was like 600 or whatever level courses, but or like graduate level courses. But again, that played. They were like, oh, UCSD, good school. I was like, yeah, it's great. And then one thing I've been doing, I started my own meetup back in the day. I started my own meetup because there was no meetup for beginners. And I was a beginner. And I was like, I want something. I figured if I taught other people stuff, that it would teach me stuff. So I just started my own meetup in the back of a coffee shop with like 10 people. And now we've got like 1,800 members and all this crazy stuff, right? But that's something that, what did I teach people? Taught people just like Python stuff that I didn't know. So I would go learn it and then teach people. And sometimes it didn't work. And people would be like, you don't know what you're talking about, right? And that was uncomfortable, but also a learning experience, right? And so like, you got to put yourself out there, like in uncomfortable, no, I didn't teach economics. I almost went to graduate school, but then I discovered deep learning and data science. I was like, I think I'm going to do this instead. And that's what led me to where I'm at today. Anyway, take initiative. If you don't see the thing out there that you need, build it, make it, put it out into the world, go present on stuff, right? That's going to make you so valuable to companies when you're like, you know, when I tell them that I've run a meetup for the past, 2018, 6 years, they're like, holy crap, right? Like that played too, right? And so anyway, so I just wanted to show my resume. I try to keep it clean. This isn't like perfect. Like I definitely could work on some things, but I say three things. I always go in threes. Notice the threes. If you haven't been three, right? People like three for some reason. So I always try to structure my stuff in threes. So I just picked the three top things. Is it everything I did? No, but I just picked the three top things I thought would look the best, right? And I put those all throughout here, and I come back to it, revisit every once in a while, change some stuff around, but keep it 2 pages or less. That's the localhost IP on your computer, Sherry. So there's no place like 127.0.0.1. It's home. Right. That's what it's supposed to be. Just a little geeky joke. Okay. Anyway, so LinkedIn, my LinkedIn's here. You're going to be able to click on it. In fact, I should share that. I'll share that link at the end here in the chat. My LinkedIn isn't coming up. I don't know why, but you'll be able to go see it. I've been working on it. How did I build my LinkedIn? I went and looked at other people's LinkedIns and I said, hey, that's a cool thing. And I copied it 100%. I copied my entire LinkedIn profile from other people's LinkedIn profiles, okay? Not to say I'm lying on my LinkedIn profile, right? Like everything there is true and I did all of those things. But I was like, that's cool how they formatted that. Mine. I like how they wrote that. Mine. Like I just compiled it into my LinkedIn profile. I have no shame. I don't care, right? Because it got me a job, right? Like I didn't lie. but I definitely like copied other formats that I thought looked good and fresh and whatever. Could it be better? Of course, it can always be better, but I've been working on it for a while. Oh, perfect. They have it. So go take a peek. If you want to copy mine, do it. I encourage you to do it. Copy everything. I don't care. All right. The last thing is networking. Okay. And we kind of were talking about this prior to this talk. Networking is the only reason I'm here today. It's the only reason. And honestly, out of all of these things, is probably the most important thing. Okay. The most successful people, some of them are actually on this call. I've helped a couple people. I at least saw at least one person that's here, helped them get a job. And it was because they talked to me and were active in reaching out that they were able to then, I was able to find a opportunity or help them in some way and get them to where they're going. It's all about who you know. If you're out here alone, trying to do it alone, it's gonna be almost impossible. Like, you have to know people. Okay, like anecdote. Recently, I had someone who just graduated from Oregon State University reach out to me, and he was working in a lab for a long time doing lab stuff. I don't know, whatever he was doing. He's a biology major. And he reached out to me and said, hey, you want to grab some coffee? I'd love to grab some coffee. I'm like, yeah, man, let's grab some coffee. I'm a yes man. Like, I'm totally down, whatever. Like, right. And we talked. He told me his background. It just so happened that someone else had reached out to me and said, hey, we're looking for Python engineers specifically with experience with microscopes. So specific. And I was like, cool. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out. Right. The guy who reached out to me from Oregon State had experience with Python and microscopes. I go, perfect. Give me your resume. I helped him make his resume look good, tidied it up a little bit, gave him some opinions, took that, handed it over. He got hired in like 2 weeks, right? I'm not saying reach out to me, I'm going to get you a job. I'm just saying reach out to whoever and make it a quality interaction. Make sure that they understand where you're coming from, what you're looking for. Also understand their background. Ask questions, lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. That's one of the best skills you can possibly learn as far as soft skills, is asking questions, being curious. Do it, right? Reach out to people. Oh, my wife got home. We're gonna shut this door. Okay, yeah, questions, ask questions. Did the coffee guy examine the code under a microscope? I don't know, not my specialty. Oh, man. Okay, so focus on these things, especially networking. Make sure your resume looks good so that when you network and they say, hey, hand me your resume and I'll see what I can do, that it's at the ready. Have it at the ready. Have it like locked and loaded, okay? And always be working on all of these things. Okay, I know we're gonna hit time here pretty soon. I just wanna leave you with, and then we can close out with some questions. I know, again, we're over time, but if you guys want to stay, I'll answer some questions. So this quote, I heard this the other day, and I love this quote. It's those heights by great men won, and we can also put women, this is the modern age, but we'll say men won and kept were not achieved by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. What does this mean? I learned this when I was running. Okay, I used to be a competitive runner, and the thing I always kept in my head was something similar to this, not nearly as elegant, but it was that when I'm not training, it's likely that there's someone else training. Does that mean I'm not resting? No, that's part of training. But the reality is that there's always someone out there working. You need to make sure that you're working as hard, if not harder, than those people, because hard work is what's going to get you there, right? Like, putting all of yourself into it, right, is what's going to get you there. And it's going to be a struggle and it's going to hurt. But like, those are the places where you thrive, right? Like, where you end up finding success. Nobody ever became successful by only being successful. All successful people have failed miserably at some point in their lives, probably multiple times, including me. I've bombed interviews, right? I've messed up at work. Right? It happens, right? But you have to learn from those things. So put yourself out there, grind hard, put everything you've got into it, and you're going to see results, right? And it's not an overnight process, But remember, we're always thinking long-term. Always have that 5-year goal in mind. All right. Let's let's do some questions.
Okay, let's see. My Wi-Fi cut out earlier, so I may not have all the questions, but let's go over some of them. The book suggestions, Rob, if you actually check out the YouTube page, we'll post it on there later, and Chris will also share the presentation, so you'll be able to check out those books.
Yeah, let me share that right now, in fact. Sure.
Let's see. Also, if you guys want to retype your questions in the chat, because there's quite some communication in here, so I'm having a hard time finding the questions.
That's the link to the slides. I just dropped it in chat. Yep. Chat and shared.
I have one question. So, would you argue more software devs lean towards TypeScript since it has less barriers than JavaScript?
I'd say exactly what I said earlier, and that's if you want to learn TypeScript. I mean, TypeScript is obviously seems to be better. I'm not a web developer, so I don't use JavaScript or TypeScript. But what I will say is just commit to one. Like you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like you're shooting in the dark. You never know, right? What job you're going to be applying for. They may want Java. Like who knows, right? Like if you like TypeScript better than JavaScript, do TypeScript. Like, you know, it's in demand. So it's, you know, and if not, it's similar to JavaScript enough to where you're probably just going to be able to be like, well, you know, like I knew Node.js, right? That was like good enough when they were looking for like JavaScript. They're like, you know, Node, you'll be fine. I'm like, all right, cool. Right. But again, I'm not a web developer. That was just for a client, not so much for any job I took.
Got it. And then another question, is it worth taking the LinkedIn test to add to your page? Not.
Yeah, I mean, look, anything's going to help, right? But I will stress again that the things that will play the most are the things that are the hardest to get, right? So the things that almost nobody has are the things that are going to make you look really good, right? So like for just anecdotally, right? I got my cloud certification. It was like Google Cloud's entry-level certification. That was okay, right? But I will tell you right now, as soon as I achieved that Google Cloud Architect certification and threw that up on my LinkedIn, my messages exploded. Like the number of recruiters that reached out to me after I got that was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God. Because I was only like a year and some change into my career, right? And I just went all in on this survey. I was like, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. And it was crazy. So I will say, and not many people, that is a hard certification to get. I will tell you from experience, right? Any of the advanced level certifications for cloud are going to play so much for you. Like if you can get there, you're going to see some good stuff. So yes, they will help, but right, like the harder it is to get, the better it is for you. So just keep that in mind. That's kind of been my philosophy on certifications or any credentials.
Got it. Next question from Joe. How would you suggest qualifying or quantifying your soft skill expertise? I know you mentioned watching some videos, etc. Any other suggestions?
So this is where I think, so one thing I didn't mention that I did want to mention back on when I was showing like and we don't need to look at it, but I just want to look. So LinkedIn Premium, I'll tell you right now, like, again, getting a job, I'm gonna say costs money, or it doesn't have to, but it can help. And what I mean by that is like, for instance, LinkedIn Premium. So the difference between LinkedIn and LinkedIn Premium, right, is pretty substantial. You get in-mail credits, and this is a roundabout way of answering your question. But I'll say you get in-mail credits. You can message anyone a certain amount of times, right? You can message anyone on LinkedIn, which means networking, You can do direct messages, right? So you can reach out to people directly and say, hey, let's have coffee, right? So that's one thing that's really valuable. Profiles. So you can see the names and accounts of people who have looked at your profile. So people who are looking, you can see if you're attracting the right people and adjust your profile and use that as kind of a gauge. Am I doing the right thing? Is my profile saying the right thing about me? Right? I used that. I thought that was super valuable. Link, and the one I wanted to touch on for what you're talking about, LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning has lots of technical stuff, but it is a treasure trove of soft skill courses. And so if you have LinkedIn Premium, you automatically get LinkedIn Learning. And I'll tell you a secret. If you're here in the Portland area, which I assume a lot of people here are, but even if you're not, go look at your local library. I know Multnomah County Library, Clackamas County Library, they both do this. Wait, maybe it's just Multnomah. Can't remember. Anyway, point is through your library, you can get a free LinkedIn Learning account through their resources, like through Multnomah County. So if you have a library card, you have access to all of LinkedIn Learning for free, which is awesome. It was like a super secret thing I discovered. I don't remember when I discovered it, like years and years ago. And I've just been like, I don't even live in Multnomah County anymore. I still use it. I have no shame. But anyway, the point is there's tons of soft skill courses there. So and so you asked about quantifying on your resume, right? You can say like, for instance, if it's communication, that's why I encourage you to give talks, right? Like do things, because that's part of those soft skills is like going to give these presentations will give you communication and all that stuff, and you can prove it. And you can put the link to your talk on your LinkedIn, right? Like make it all cohesive and like, you know, what's that called? I forget the word. Someone throw it out there. Synergy. I hate that buzzword, but we'll use it. Synergy.
Great. I'll take that tip. I'll be using Multnomah County's LinkedIn Learning page. All right. I think somebody asked, sorry, scrolled down a little too fast. Someone asked for a recommendation on a cybersecurity boot camp. We actually do have a cybersecurity boot camp here at the Tech Academy. Here is the link to that page. If you go on our website, it has more information. This is just like a direct link to the cybersecurity bootcamp page. But check that out and let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
Also, I did turn on the mics, so feel free if you guys have any questions that you want to verbally ask, you guys are able to do that. So let me know if anybody has any questions. All right.
I see this like long question here from Klaus. Oh, was there someone who raised their hand or something?
Oh, not that I know. No.
Okay, cool. Let me just address this. So, so how do you value focusing on more broad languages like Python, JS, SQL, etc., versus obtaining niche language skills? Essentially, you know language XYZ, but company is looking for language A, or another company needs language B. Well, if that's the company you're targeting, right, then that's probably the language to like learn, right? But like at the same time, it's rare that you'll see a company that just says, we only want C++ and we won't accept anything else, right? Like they exist, but like if you're targeting like that, like those companies, then it's likely that you're kind of restricting your search anyway. You should be learning these broader languages, right? And if those companies don't want you because you don't know C++, well, screw that company. Like, go somewhere else. Like, they want something specific, right? Like, and that's not you. Don't try to like bend yourself to match a specific company. It's like shotgun fire. Like, make sure you're broad enough, right, to like capture a whole bunch of companies. And like, if you're not a good fit for one company, then you're just not a good fit, right? And like a lot of times when people get denied for jobs, they're like, what did I do wrong? This is the company I wanted. It's really hard not to do that. Right. But like at the same time, it means you just were not a good fit, or the company, or even better, the company's not a good fit for you, you know, like find someone who wants you. So
right. Dating for dollars. Right.
Yeah.
Can I expand on that real quick?
Yeah, please.
So the, not going to turn that on. No, stay on. Okay.
I want you to turn it on. Yeah, there we go.
So basically, my biggest question was,
Yeah.
you know, a company wants you to have experience with Angular, but you
Mhm.
only know Vue,
Mhm.
or yeah, I know Python and I know JavaScript and everything, but they want me to have something like Kotlin,
Mhm.
and there's so many languages out there, and there's so many companies that I'm sorry, but it is a nightmare trying to hone in on not only even just trying to perfect one or two languages, but having several languages under your belt where there's really no reason for me to sit down and dump 30 or 40 hours into PHP when there's a handful of companies out there that are even going to be using that. Probably if I know PHP, I'm probably going to get a really nice pay, but I don't know. Thoughts on that? I'm going to turn off my camera because I don't like being a spaceman anymore.
I like you being a spaceman, but that's fine. What I mean, again, it sounds like what you're saying is like right. You want to target like a language for a specific company. If the company isn't hiring you because you don't know a specific language, like if those are the jobs you want, go get those jobs, right? Like go after that language and learn it and whatever. But again, I don't believe in spreading yourself thin. The more hyper focused you are on specific things, the faster you're going to learn and the faster you're going to get where you're going. Right? Like if you spread yourself thin, like you can't learning more than one programming language, I think is pushing it. Beyond that, no, like don't do that to yourself. And again, it's like if there's a specific company you're targeting, like some people are like, I want to work at Google. And it's like, there's so many companies out there. Like every company is a tech company these days. You know what I mean? And they all have their specific things they're looking for. So if you find a language that is relatively popular and you focus on that language, right? Then like I said, you'll learn the fundamentals enough to where if you get out in the job hunt and you're like, oh, I'm starting to see TypeScript pop up a whole bunch. Well, you've already gone through the process of learning how to learn a programming language to where you can just be like, now I need to learn TypeScript or Kotlin or whatever it is you need to learn, right? But again, it's like my philosophy comes back to this. Pick one. Don't base it on what companies, base it on what companies want, because you don't want some obscure, ridiculous language that nobody's using. But nevertheless, like don't just be like, well, I don't think this is going to, be useful. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like it's like focus.
Yeah,
I just want you to hyper focus.
Yeah, I generally get what you're.
Yeah. I'm getting
Okay.
lost in my thoughts, but anyway.
No, I appreciate it though. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Like, don't kill yourself trying to learn every language you think is going to be valuable. It will make you actually less valuable because you know less because you've spread yourself too thin. Yeah. A good company will interview you for your general knowledge, not for do you know Kotlin, right? Unless it's like a job for Kotlin, right? Then you should probably know Kotlin.
Well, the reason I asked that is so the previous job that I was at, whenever I was initially interviewed, it was for a website developer, and I ended up working as a software dev, front end, back end, where I had to learn Kotlin. I never even heard of Kotlin until I started there, and so it was a nightmare. So, but yeah, I won't. I'll take that in as not spreading too thin. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And like I've had to do the same thing. Like I had to learn. Like I've been having to learn C#
now.
right? So
Yeah.
I never thought I'd need C#. I've never learned C#. I've never even considered C#. But all of a sudden, everybody was like, "Hey, we're building this thing in C#." I'm like, "All right, I guess I'm learning C#." But it wasn't that hard, right? Read a book, got it. All right, let's roll. Because I understand software architecture. I understand, how to code, like languages, like that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Great. Sorry about that, Klaus. Question, John?
Well, that's what I'm doing now. I basically took a broad shotgun range of like machine learning, AI. There's two ends of the spectrum, and realizes where you meet in the middle and what's actually needed for both. And you see all these companies the bigger companies are really jumping on the bandwagon because these little companies created this AI phenomenon. and they're just all trying to capture it. I was just at Amazon the other day, and they got all their services they're putting together, and just getting an idea of what they're looking for if you're going to basically try to get with AWS. So go with cloud, like you said, and that's the best way to get your foot in the door, and then start focusing on if you want to work for AWS. And that would work, and then all this AI stuff falls in, because then you have knowledge of their programs that are coming up, something called Code Whisperer or something along those lines, where they're putting AI in there. They see doing kind of a co-pilot situation. They're trying to counter Google or Microsoft. So you can play them against each other if you go and listen and see who's got the best possibility for you to get in the door.
Yeah, and AWS learning cloud doesn't necessarily mean like just because you learn GCP doesn't mean you're going to work for Google. Like
Right.
a lot of companies are using AWS GCP, and I also want to make a comment on that, and that is that AI has been around for a very long time, and we're seeing this explosion of generative AI right now, but traditional machine learning still plays, right? And it is mostly the big companies driving that. It
Right.
hasn't necessarily been the little companies. The little companies, the smaller startups like OpenAI, which you could argue is not necessarily a small startup anymore, but nevertheless is like they've driven this generative AI movement. But overall, AI has been driven by Google, Microsoft, and Amazon for the better part of 20 years, right?
Well, the point of the meeting yesterday was that they were advertising their services,
Sure.
and all the people there, but the smaller companies.
Mhm.
They were saying, this is what we're presenting. So if you're a customer or you're thinking about AWS, this is what we have to offer.
Mhm.
And now anything you want to explore, you don't need to go here. Come to us. We'll do everything you need.
Sounds
You know,
very much like a sales.
Right? Smart marketing. If it was Google or Microsoft, they'd be doing this, and no big deal. It's just like, do you like those companies? And if you're involved with those companies, look for those companies that are involved with them, and stay with that whole focus. That's what I was going down.
Yeah, focus is the key for sure.
Definitely.
All right. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I know people had a lot more questions, but I did share Chris's LinkedIn in there, so feel free to connect with them on there and ask questions. Also, as you guys know, we're recording today's Tech Talk, and I posted the link for our YouTube playlist, and we'll post it on Monday. So check that out, and you can watch all the previous talks on there as well. And just to let you know, we are having an in-person Tech Talk next week. If you're in Portland, we'd love to have you at our Portland campus. It's in downtown. We're also going to be live streaming it. So if you're not in the Portland area, you can still join. And it's going to be on cybersecurity. And here's the listing for that. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed today's talk. Thank you so much, Chris, for an awesome presentation as always.
Thank you.
And I hope everybody has a great Friday.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.